What's going on, Nerds of Color viewers? This is Lauren Lola coming to you with another conversation for y'all. I am so excited to share this interview I've done with Gerald Ramsey. Now, in case you haven't heard of him, if you've seen Moana 2, you've definitely heard him as the voice of Tautai Vasa, the ancestor of Moana who summons her on her new mission. If you've seen the North American touring production company, The Lion King and all within the last 10 years, then you have seen him as Mufasa. Aside from those two significant roles, he has also played a role in My Name is Gary Cooper at Kumu Kahua Theater in Hawaii, and has also been in productions of Ha, The Breath of Life, and Rainbows of Paradise at the Polynesian Cultural Center. Gerald and I spoke 8 years ago about The Lion King, and it was around the time Moana came out as well. So I'm very excited to get to talk to him again, both about his recent departure from the show after being with it for almost 10 years, and also about his role in Moana 2. Before we get to it, I do want to acknowledge that the previous interview was done for the Center for Asian American Media back when I was an intern for them. And there's been a very historical, shall we say, initiative to combine the Asian American Pacific Islander communities together. And while, yes, we do have some similarities, we also have some differences that are unique to our own specific communities. In retrospect, I feel that publishing that interview may have been better off on a different outlet I wrote for at the time. But quality-wise, I think it's still a very wonderful conversation that I encourage you to check out. The link for it will be in the description down below. And without further ado, here is my conversation with Gerald Faitala Ramsey. Here we go. So you've had quite a year of so many big milestones in your career. And I was wondering if you could start off by talking about just how you've been feeling about it all.
It has, yeah, it's been a crazy year of, I think, like transitions and I think ending certain voyages and beginning new voyages, especially I think being on with Lion King for almost a decade, traveling North America. I think you can't help but like have a little bit of apprehension leaving something that you're so familiar with. And honestly, truly, and I'm not just saying this because it's what happened, but getting a chance to be part of Moana 2 really did give me like a guiding star. It gave me like just a sense of direction transitioning out of Lion King, and it was also felt like a homecoming because I've been in the Pride Lands, feels like a home away from home. It's a different culture, but I think there was a mutual embracing. But there's just nothing like being home, and that's what Moana has felt like.
I bet, yeah. When I last spoke to you, which was 8 years ago at this point, you were about a year and a half into your run as Mufasa in The Lion King. I'm curious, how did your approach to playing the character evolve over the years? And any feelings of uncertainty that you had at the time, were they ever resolved?
I went back and I read our interview, and it's
Same.
funny how many through lines there have been, and maybe for a period of time I felt like much more confident in at least playing the role of Mufasa. Um, I felt much more secure in who I am. And I think with the support of the South African cast, they really did give me kind of their stamp of approval in my portrayal of their culture and a character that is based in their culture. Um, so I felt much more confident. But I think then once again, all those feelings that we had in the beginning, like 8 years ago, they all started to come back and bubble up as I was transitioning out of the Pride Lands. I was back to thinking, am I good enough to do anything else? Like, is Mufasa the only thing that I think I'm good at? It was just like a one-time fluke. And it's all the same things I was reading in our first interview. Like, I was laughing at myself. They all came back. The same like
Hmm.
insecurities were coming back.
So what did you do to overcome them as they were coming back to you?
I think the first time I was a lot more isolated,
Hmm.
and I kind of kept it to myself for fear of looking foolish or people maybe looking down on me for not being as confident as the character that I was portraying on stage. And it sounds so corny, Lauren, but once again, like I think Moana Part 2 talks about community, and it talks about the importance of connecting within your village, reaching out for help, looking to other islands and reconnecting with other people. And I think that was a huge difference this time around. Although I did have a brief stint of like self-doubt, um, there was a maturity in being able to reach out and ask for help with people I had become close to in The Lion King and new people that I had met in Moana.
Nice. I'm glad you were able to have that community in both those spaces.
Yeah.
So when we last spoke, you were one of two actors of Pacific Islander descent to play a main character in a Disney stage production. You and Nikafoa previously with the
Yeah.
production of The Lion King. How has the trajectory of Pacific Islanders in theater changed over the years, from what you can tell?
Well, not long after I spoke to you, they actually picked up the Aladdin and Jasmine for the Aladdin National Tour were both Hawaiian. And I was
Wow.
so elated and excited. I reached out to them right away. I was worried maybe I was coming off a little bit too strong, but there was just such a excitement, I think, for someone else to relate to.
Mhm.
Nick Afoa has since gone back to Australia and he's been doing productions like Miss Saigon and he's been busy in theater down there and on TV as well as with his wife. And he's a relationship I continue to treasure after all these
Nice.
years. Same thing with the woman Kaena who was playing Jasmine on the national tour. I reached out to her. We met up in Hawaii and had this hours talking over coffee about our experiences on tour. I've since gone to Broadway and visited, and Auli'i Cravalho is like the lead in the Kit Kat Club.
That's right.
This
Yeah, she's
Nicole
from Hawaii.
Scherzinger was like right around the corner, like headlining Sunset Boulevard. Another Samoan brother of mine, Daryl Tofa, is in The Outsiders, one of the lead roles. So it was, I think, maybe I didn't see it, didn't realize it was there, but I do feel like there's such an incredible representation of Pacifica in theater. There's a long way to go, of course, but I think there's definitely a change from when I first joined 8 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah. And now that you put that into perspective, it's like, yeah, it's true. Auli'i made her Broadway debut earlier this year. And wow, that is just amazing that, we're starting to see some progress in that. And I agree with you that there's still a ways to go.
Hmm.
I would be remiss to be talking to you about playing Mufasa without mentioning the fact that I think like a week and a half before your final performance, James Earl Jones had passed away.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, like, what were your thoughts when that happened, and how, if at all, did that affect your final performances?
And my thoughts were truly encapsulated in the song They Live in You. And I think he's left such an incredible legacy through all of the roles he's played, but specifically through Mufasa and how that connects to me in my life, how it connects to me in the culture that I come from and the foundation for my life. And as I've matured, especially through um, such a momentous worldwide event as, the COVID pandemic,
Yeah.
uh, I already come from a culture that there's a very thin line between the spiritual realm and our physical realm. We were attending funerals and speaking about death from when we're children, so we're not removed from it. But as I'm getting older, I think it's less sadness that engulfs me, and it's more gratitude for the legacy they left behind, and truly knowing that they're never really gone. It was so funny, like in Moana too, like Grandma Tala says, like we're still together, just different. And I feel that even with James Earl Jones, like he's left such an incredible legacy that anyone um, can see his body of work and be moved and be touched and transformed by his work.
Absolutely, yeah. He's left such a mark on this industry
Yeah.
beyond, beyond words that you're right. Even though he's no longer here, it's like you can see him or listen to him in so many works that he's left behind. So I wanted to address the elephant in the room, which is why did you decide to depart the touring production of The Lion King?
There's a joke between me and Scar, like cats have 9 lives, 9 years. It's time. Um, Maybe there's a level of comfort, I think, in doing something so familiar after all these years.
Mm,
And maybe it's just in our bones, I think, as Polynesians, as Pacific Islanders, that you get an itch to explore, and to travel. And I know in my younger life, I craved comfort and I craved being in the background. And um, I felt like maybe it would be irresponsible of me to stay there, when there's other opportunities to continue to do things, not just for myself, but for the community. Um, be brave, be daring, and just go, you know?
yeah, totally. I mean, like it's like you were saying, that I guess it is embedded in the Pacific Islander culture. I mean, like you're descendants of wayfinders, so of course you're going to be navigating your way around.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's such a great reminder of what the film is doing, and the entire universe of Moana is reminding Pacific Islanders who we are, and that we at one time were the greatest ocean-going navigators of the entire world. And through many reasons, I think, including colonialism and education systems that take over, I think sometimes it's easy for us to forget that or to not
Mhm.
be taught that. But I think it's time to be reminded, and there's a power in that. And it's not to make anybody else feel less, but I think it's just to empower. We can all feel empowered together. Doesn't mean anybody else has to feel less.
Yeah, of course. And I'm curious, did you get the chance to meet your successor before you left? And if so, what did you pass on any advice to him?
So he actually, it's so funny because I've also always had these fantasies of playing George Washington in Hamilton. And that's where
Oh,
he came from. He just finished playing George Washington in Hamilton. So
oh,
I think
wow.
we had a meetup, and I think he was interested in asking me, talking to me about Mufasa and coming in. And I was like, forget Mufasa, tell me about George Washington. So
You'd
it was
make
a
a
great.
good George Washington.
I hope so. From your mouth to whoever's cast to Chelsea casting, like I would love one day to get a chance to do that. It's especially they value diversity so much. I was like, well, I'm on Pacific Islands. I'm one American, George Washington. I'm ready.
Let's make that happen. But yeah, I mean, going back to the question, yeah, like, did you pass along any advice to him?
To be honest, I looked at him and he has such a incredible career already and incredible training, and I felt almost foolish in giving him any advice. All I could make sure I told him is this is what my experience was. That doesn't mean it's going to be your experience. And I think that goes for just all of our lives in general. When we hear someone giving us advice, it's coming from their perspective, and I wanted to make sure first and foremost he understood that. I'm not telling him how to tour the country. He's done it already, or how to play Mufasa. That's going to come from him,
Mhm.
and that's the power I think of theater is that we get a chance to bring a piece of ourselves into a role. Same script, same blocking, but you can watch different actors play it in totally different ways. And that's why I loved watching all the different casts of Lion King around the world as well. When I get a chance, I just love seeing uh, the power of an artist.
Every artist is unique to each their own, and they're all able to leave their own unique imprint on the thing that they're working on, in this case, in the role.
Yeah.
So I want to transition now into talking about Moana 2. And when we spoke 8 years ago, as you well know, it was around the time the original Moana came out. And I remember how proud you were at the time when it came out. And so I want to know then, what did it mean for you to get to be a part of the follow-up?
So a bunch of the cast went to watch Moana because I was so excited. We went and we watched, and I was in tears just seeing the authenticity and the detail work and the beauty from the hair to the noses, the skin color, the plants, the quality of the water that they were showing. It was just made me very homesick, I think, in one hand. And I truly thought I had missed my opportunity, if there ever was one, to be a part of something so representative of where I come from. And then a few years later, I got a message if I was interested in being the a voice on Moana Junior, which is like a music educational program that Disney puts together for Disney musicals in schools. And I thought, oh, this is my chance to be part of the Moana universe. So I did like a pronunciation guide for them. So any schools that want to Moana Junior, you'd see me on there teaching them how to pronounce the Pacific Island words and lyrics.
Oh, wow.
And I was happy. I was so happy with that. And then this comes along, like I got a direct a DM on Instagram from a casting agent, Grace Kim, who saw The Lion King at the Pantages in LA. And I thought it
Mhm.
was a scam, some kind of scheme. So I didn't respond right away. I was like, why is someone DMing me? But all she wanted to know was, do you have an agent? Do you have a manager? I was like, no, no. And then she sent me her email that said it's Disney Animation Studio. I was like, man, maybe it's real. And she said she saw my work, expressed interest in an upcoming project they were doing, but there was no mention that it was Moana. It was all very vague.
Hmm.
And I think that was kind of the seed of like, why not? And it's because I was open with close, supportive, um, network of mine in Lion King who are also telling me, yeah, why not? The same thing you did for Lion King, you just showed up and did it, and look what happened. Like, just show up and do it and see what happens. And we ended up here, you know.
When you found out what you got yourself into, that you're going to be part of the sequel, like how did you react?
I think even to this day, it's hard to believe. Even watching it on the screen and attending the premiere and meeting the co-stars, it just feels like a battle with imposter syndrome and still
Mm.
feeling unworthy of such an incredible, because the names who are on this film, particularly like Opetaya Fowa'i and Te Vaka, like these are the foundational, heartbeat and soul of Pacific music that's reached around the world. And to be involved with anything that includes these names, I have to remind myself where I come from, and the blood that I carry is my grandmother, my grandfather, and our lineage. And we're a part of it. We're all part of this tapestry of the Pacific, and it's okay, you know, it's okay.
Yeah, more than okay.
More than
More than okay to be a part of something this big. Oh, I find it interesting, and I haven't really seen anyone else talk about it since it came out, is that your character, Tautai Vasa, we've seen him in the original Moana, but
yeah.
we didn't know his name. We didn't know his story. We just knew that he was a wayfinder. And you brought the voice to him in this one, which is amazing. And I guess I wanted to ask then, how was your experience with voice acting compared to acting for the stage?
Every recording session I had with the directors, David Derrick and Daniel Du Miller and Jason Hand, I felt like they were gonna fire me on the spot. And I was like, wait, this feels, because I felt like that with The Lion King. Every time I showed up to rehearse, I'm like, this is the day you get fired. And especially transitioning out of Lion King, there were all of these old insecurities kind of resurfacing.
Mm,
Every time I stepped in that recording booth, they were the most encouraging voices that were speaking directly to fears that they didn't know that I had. When I would do a reading with them, they like, that was incredible, amazing. I'm like, man, every doubt that I had was being snuffed out by each and every one of those people on that Zoom call in those recording sessions. And I'm so grateful for them, and grateful to them. When they said who the character was, I was like, first of all, it's very Mufasa-esque, to be sharing a message from the great beyond. And it felt like such a responsibility, but not a burden though, just a responsibility to do it as honestly as possible. And the casting director reminded me that's why she took my name down when she saw The Lion King, and it was from the apparition scene in The Lion King. It wasn't me on stage; it was just a vocal performance.
right. I remember,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I
so
remember when you gave me that tour after your performance. You showed me the
yeah,
mic of where you do that
yeah.
performance.
And I think sometimes as stage performers, we can feel like if you can't be seen, you can kind of just relax physically. And I think that's what doesn't happen in a recording booth. And I'm sure everybody or a lot of people have seen these recording behind the scenes videos of actors in a studio, and it's a fully physical performance. And I think the same thing happens when they give you the background story to your character and the scene. You can't help but feel the emotions, and it comes across on your face and then in your hands and in your body. So in that way, I think it's just as exhausting as a physical performance on stage. I was surprised at how much I loved doing it. Because I was doing something new for the first time for me. I run away. I prefer to do something I'm familiar with. I probably like most people. So going into that booth the first time in DC, I was just like, the first thing I told myself was, don't make a fool of yourself. And the second thought was like, oh, wait, you make a fool of yourself. You know what I mean? Like, they'll tell you what they need from you. You don't know what they need. And I think it's a lot of maybe wasted energy to try to assume what you think they might need and then perform in a way. It's just very performative as opposed to the opposite. What they need is truthfulness and honesty and storytelling, and
Yeah,
trusting the director. The director will tell you where we need to go.
yeah, yeah. Because the director's the one that has a vision. So
Hmm.
if they're telling you you're doing something right, then you must be right on course.
Yes.
You hit on something that I was going to ask about is that like you seem to have this chain going now where you play ancestors. You're Tautai Vasa and Moana too, and then Mufasa who becomes an ancestor. How is it getting to play ancestors in these very distinct but similar projects?
What's not, and when I was a dancer at the Polynesian Culture Center, the big night show is called Hale Breath of Life. I got
Mhm.
a chance some nights to play the father, who also comes back from the dead as that spirit. I was like, I'm not mad. If these are the roles that I'm being cast for, I think uh what an opportunity to address what may be sadness for a lot of people, the losing a loved one, but being a reminder that the loved one is still there. They can still speak to you if you listen. All the wisdom they imparted to you when they were still here physically is still there, like they're not gone. It's just different.
Mm. Yeah, kind of going back to that.
Yeah.
And I just realized that if you ever get cast as George Washington in Hamilton, the same thing would eventually happen.
I think it's meant to be, right?
Yeah. I don't know what it is. You just have that ancestor energy.
Old soul, some old soul in here is just, that's what they love to play, I guess.
Yeah. So you got to be part of the sequel. There's a live action production in the works. Last time we spoke, you talked about hopes for there to be a stage production, like a full blown non-junior stage production of Moana then.
Yeah.
Do you still hope for that to happen one day?
Yes, and it's out there, so I'm not breaking any NDAs or anything, but they have started with a stage production on the new Disney Cruise Line.
Oh
And the
wow.
woman playing Moana is Kaena, who played Jasmine on the national tour, who is from Hawaii. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
so I've never been on a cruise. I honestly haven't had any interest on being on a cruise, but I would jump on a cruise to go see her perform and to watch what they've done with this Moana stage production. When we were in Portland with The Lion King, we stopped by Michael Curry Studios, who does all the puppets for The Lion King, as well as many other productions. He also was working on the puppets for the Moana theater production on the cruise line, where
Oh
other
wow.
musicals have started. It sometimes is considered like an incubator for bigger productions down the line. So
Right.
I've experienced firsthand the power of what they were able to do with the visionary director based on such an incredible culture as the cultures in South Africa, combined with a story like The Lion King, and how powerful and long lasting The Lion King title is, just as a stage production. And I believe that for Moana as well. We have an incredibly rich, deep performance and storytelling based culture in the Pacific. And I think they have the access to visionary directors and puppeteers. I think it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, if it's already manifesting in the
Yeah,
form of a production on a cruise line, then yeah, I could see it going bigger than that. And hopefully it'll
yeah.
just happen.
And hopefully I'm part of
And hopefully you're part of it too.
it.
You're done with The Lion King, and Moana 2 is now playing in theaters.
Yeah.
What are you looking to manifest going forward in your career?
Ooh. See, the first thing I want to make sure I'm doing is staying open.
Mm,
I think when I was first looking at leaving the Pride Lands, my first thought was just, okay, I was in a musical theater production. I'm gonna keep pursuing other musical theater productions.
mm,
But then Moana 2 came along, which is completely animation and voiceover work, which I've never considered, but I'm glad I stayed open to that and that I had experienced that now. And it's reminded me to stay open to anything that's possible in the future. I would love to continue storytelling. I would love to be a part of Hamilton. I think that's something I'm going to keep putting out there. Um, but other than that, I think networking through Moana, through Lion King, everyone I've met on the press tours and across the country, I'm open to new opportunities and to learn new things, no matter how scary they are. To be honest, there's a pressure, like as artists, I've heard it all the time where they say, what's next? What's next? And sometimes you equate your value with whatever your project is or what your next project is going to be.
mm.
And I'm being part of Moana 2 feels like a homecoming, but it's literally been a homecoming to get a chance to spend so much time with my mom and my sisters and my nieces and my nephews. It's been almost a decade since I've been able to spend this much time with all of them. And
Yeah.
I'm very, very grateful for the time now that I have a little bit time to be down, taking to the movie theater to see not just me perform, but to see a story that represents us. And I'm also excited for whatever comes next.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, I was just gonna say, like, it has had to have been a minute since you got to spend, a significant amount of time with your family. So I'm glad you've had to have this time to share with them, and especially for something so special as a film that represents your culture in such a special way.
Yeah, not just the support from within my own family, but from the Pacific at large. I think it's been such an incredible reception. And beyond the financial accolades that it's receiving, I think the love it's receiving, especially from kids, I think it's so incredible to see representation at work because there is power in representation. There is power in seeing someone who looks like you doing something you thought you could never do. And it plants a seed in you that you can do that one day and grow and do more.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. Is there anything else that you want to add? Maybe something I haven't asked about that you want to toss in?
I'm not doing this to be lazy, but last time we asked this and I read it, I was like, it's still true. I
Yeah.
think there is a climate crisis in the Pacific, and I think Moana is in the world, and I think the Pacific Islands continue to be the first ones to face the consequences of mishandling our natural environment. And what I love about Moana 2 is there is a message at the end where she's searching for the other islanders, for all of us to come together at Motu. And although we've been divided in the past based on who our colonial powers were at that time, whether they were British or German or American, we may be separated by our languages, whether you speak French in French Polynesia or English in American Samoa. I think it is high time, and it's time for us to come together collectively as a voice, as the largest like ethnosphere in the world, in the largest part of the world in the Pacific Ocean, to have our voices be heard. And I think a lot of people around the world will be able to resonate with what message we have in just trying to preserve and save and protect our environment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I feel like since we last spoke, like the climate change issue has only gotten worse in so many parts of the world. Like we saw this over a year ago in Lahaina, and they're still
Yeah,
recovering from that now. So,
yes.
yeah, my hope is that, maybe like films like Moana 2 and efforts made by different climate activists can help make that come about and make a change for the better before it gets too late.
Yeah, and I mean, and there's a line from Lion King that says everything is connected in the circle of life. And I think that's true with the arts. So making a production like Moana may seem like it's just Disney entertainment for kids, but it's not. I really do think art has power. It has power in planting seeds of connection, of reaching out, of creating a collective experience for us to realize we're all going through something together and that we have the power to affect change.
Artists and professors, maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC. In full color, you see me. The hard knock life, comics, movies, and TV. Yeah, pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this.